Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Well, our colleague, Arise international correspondent Adefemi Akisoya, who is here with us, comes in now with a global briefing on this unfortunate incident on former U.S. President Donald Trump getting shot at in Pennsylvania.
Good morning to you, Ron.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good morning. Adefemi.
It's nice to break up and start the show on some form of high spirits, considering the news of what's happened overnight. It is quite shocking and quite remarkable. We'll get into it, all of that now. Let me just bring you up to speed. So essentially what we're looking at is a gunman and one audience member are dead after a shooting at former President Donald Trump's rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday night. That's according to the local district attorney there. Another spectator is also in serious condition. Donald Trump himself was whisked off stage at that rally over in Pennsylvania, the area of Butler, after apparent gunshots rang through the crowd. Trump was showing off a chart of border crossing numbers when bangs started ringing out. Trump could be seen reaching with his right hand towards his neck, and there appeared to be blood on his face as he emerged. Now, he quickly ducked behind the podium as agents from his protective detail rushed the stage and screams rang out from the crowd. The bangs continued as agents tended to him on stage. Now, the crowd also then cheered as former President Trump got back up and pumped his fist. His motorcade has since then left the venue, and the Secret Service say that the shooter fired multiple shots from an elevated position outside of the rally before he was killed by agents. Law enforcement sources say the shooter was on a building rooftop just outside the rally venue. The shooting is being investigated as an attempt of assassination. Let's take a listen.
Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down. My shoes.
Watch out.
Wait.
Well, that says the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, they've identified 20-year-old Pennsylvania resident as a suspected shooter at Trump's rally on Saturday just gone. The FBI is not releasing a photograph of the suspected shooter yet, but we do know that he has been identified from other sources as Matthew Crooks, 20 years old. Now, former President Trump was injured, as we've just seen, Saturday evening during this rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. The gunman and at least one audience member are dead. The Secret Service say two other attendees are critically injured and still receiving treatment. And then during a news conference thereafter, the FBI said that law enforcement did not know that there was a person on the roof of a building nearby Trump's rally until shots were fired. Donald Trump himself has now left this area. Clearly, his rally was being held in Butler under the protection of the Secret Service, according to a statement by Pennsylvania Governor John Shapiro, which he posted on X. Shapiro said that he was thankful that Trump was fine and wished him a full and speedy recovery. He added that he was grateful for all enforcement who responded, protected the former president, and worked to bring the situation under control. He also confirmed that federal law enforcement officials would continue to lead the investigation into the shooting or attempted shooting of former President Trump, while Pennsylvania State Police would lead the investigation into the shooting of the other victims. Now, Donald Trump himself, the former US president and the presumptive Republican candidate for this 2024 presidential election, again, he has been shot. That has been confirmed at this rally in Pennsylvania just gone on Saturday. He said that that bullet pierced the upper part of his right ear. In the video there, you do see him put his hand to his ear before he's taken to the ground. On Truth Social site, former President Trump described in detail how the gunshot ripped his skin. The post reads, let's take a listen here. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. AFP is then quoted Donald Trump as saying that I knew immediately that something was wrong, that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. He also added that it's incredible that such an act can take place in our country. Current President Joe Biden, he has spoken with former President Donald Trump after the shooting. Biden has, of course, denounced the violence in remarks on Saturday night and said in a statement thereafter that he is grateful that Trump is safe. President Biden, who was planning to stay in Delaware for the weekend, it was believed that he was planning to attend a church service, is returning to the White House earlier than planned so that he can continue receiving briefings from law enforcement. Let's just take a quick listen to what we're hearing from the presidency.
Thoroughly briefed by all the agencies in the federal government as to the situation, based on what we know now. I have tried to get a hold of Donald. He's with his doctors. Apparently he's doing well. I plan on talking to them shortly, I hope, when I get back to the telephone. Look, there's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. And I want to thank the Secret Service and all the agencies, including the state agencies, that have been engaged in making sure that the people and we have more detail to come relative to other people maybe injured in the audience. I don't have all that detail. We'll make that available to you. I may be able to come back a little later tonight, but we'll put out a statement if I'm not able to if it's not convenient for you all. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully and without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody. I'll keep you informed, and if I am able to speak to Donald, I'll let you know that as well. But so far, it appears he's doing well, number one. Number two, that there's thoroughly investigating what happened to anyone else in the audience. We have some reports, but not final reports. And every agency in the federal government, I'm going back to my phone to speak with the federal agencies that are being put together again to give me an updated briefing. Has anything happened? They learned any more in the last couple hours. So thank you very much, and I hope I get to speak to them tonight, and I'll get back to you if I do, okay? I don't know enough I have an opinion, but I don't have any facts. So I want to make sure we have all the facts before I make any more comments.
Thanks to Adefemi Akisanya, who's still here in the studio with us. But before we bring her back on, Arise U.S. correspondent Eric Ham joins us now from Washington for an update on the developing story. Good morning, Eric. Good to have you join us on the morning show.
It's good to be here.
All right, thank you. What more do we know about this very curious event of last night, Nigerian time? What more do we need to know?
Well, we do know that the shooter himself has actually been neutralized. We're told that he was one of the people who were killed at the rally, and his name is Thomas Matthew Crooks. He's a 20-year-old from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Bethel Park, Pennsylvania is about 43 to 53 miles away from Butler, Pennsylvania, where the shooting actually took place. The FBI has identified the shooter as of right now. In addition to that, we are told that this is still an open and active investigation that's being led by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. In addition to that, we know that they are also being assisted by the Secret Service. As far as the well-being and health of Donald Trump, we know that he is also back at his Bedminster Club in New Jersey after the shooting incident. We're told that he is fine. He is surrounded by his family. We also know that he spoke with the President, Joe Biden, tonight as well. Now, we don't have any detail about what exactly they discussed or talked about, but we do know that the two of the men had a conversation. In addition to that, we know that the shooting, the actual weapon that was fired, that was used in this shooting, was an AR-15 style assault weapon. We know that it was also recovered at the scene of the shooting. There's no more detail about that. We are told that the assailant did manage to fire at least 8 shots, and it was those shots that managed to injure others as well as kill an innocent bystander that was at the rally as well. And we're also learning that the shooter himself was on a rooftop about 200 to 300 yards away from where Donald Trump was when he was injured at the time. And so that's what we're learning. We're still waiting for more information as it comes in about this shooting that took place today with Donald Trump. Now, even though Donald Trump was injured, we also know, and this is important, the Republican nominating convention, their annual convention where Donald Trump will be formally nominated as the nominee for the Republican Party. That is still moving forward, and we expect Donald Trump to officially accept the nomination for his party in about 5 days in Milwaukee, where that convention is expected to be held and take place. Now, as far as what other security measures will be put in place, we don't know what they look like or what will happen at this time, but we do know that convention is scheduled to take place where Donald Trump's vice presidential running mate is expected to also be identified as well.
Well, thank you very much. Do we have any updates from the Democrats about how they're going to handle this in the upcoming elections? Do you believe that this is going to have an impact on the elections? People have been talking about former President Reagan and the attempt on his life and how it affected his election results. Do you believe they're going to see the same thing in this cycle?
Well, when Reagan was shot in 1981, we have to remember that election didn't take place until 3 years later. This election is taking place less than 120 days after this attempted assassination. So I think there is a timeline difference here. Will there be some impact in terms of what this will mean for the election going forward? I suspect that it will be, but because it's so early right now, we just don't know how this is going to play out. We still have not heard from Donald Trump himself about what transpired, and more importantly, how or the platform of the Republican Party will be shaped by this shooting that took place. We know that the issue of guns and gun control has been a politically polarizing issue in the United States, and I suspect it will continue to be. It's also unclear if the Republican Party is going to reshape or revamp their policy platform at the upcoming convention to somehow involve or say something about guns. We don't know what that will look like either. But what we do know going into this shooting, the race between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, it was a very tight race. I suspect nothing about that in terms of where each of the candidates stands. I suspect nothing will change in those terms. However, in terms of the safety and security measures surrounding each of these individuals, that certainly could, I think, have a major impact on how each of these individuals actually move forward, not only with campaigning, but also how they shape their messaging when actually speaking and trying to reach the electorate.
All right, Eric, talk to us a bit more about what this portends for this particular election. You mentioned the issue of Reagan in 1981, but of course we know of 1968, we know of 1972, and the sort of pattern of violence in American elections. Does it look like things are returning to the bad old days? And how do you think that this might affect the campaigns moving forward?
That's a really good question, and you're right to ask that, because not only have we seen, of course, the political violence and rhetoric ratcheting up in the United States, culminating with the assassination attempt of a former U.S. president. But we have also seen the attack on the husband of the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Of course, there's still January 6th that still simmers in this country as well. And of course, it does appear as though the country is moving into a very dark place right now as we look not only at these nominating conventions, but also what this means for this upcoming election. We know that even before this assassination attempt, there was tremendous angst in the Democratic Party surrounding the health and fitness of President Joe Biden. And of course, there were lingering and murmurs about Donald Trump as well. So it's unclear what this latest assassination attempt will mean. And of course, the United States is no stranger to assassinations and assassination attempts on its presidential candidates as well as its presidents. The United States has a long, dark history of presidential assassinations as well as successful assassinations of presidential candidates as well. And so this does certainly, I think, bring that history back into a much larger light. And of course, many are wondering if we will continue to see this level of violence continue. But of course, this could be a potential opportunity for both candidates to actually change the trajectory of the race by attempting to tamp down on the rhetoric that we're seeing play out in this race. We also know that the Biden campaign has pulled down all of their attack ads on Donald Trump in the wake of this assassination attempt. Now, we don't know if this is going to be for the duration of the campaign or if this is something that will just be temporary. In addition to that, we know while both Donald Trump as well as President Biden both are surrounded by Secret Service protection, there's also the independent candidate, Robert Kennedy Jr., who, of course, personally recognizes and understands what these attempts and these assassination attempts mean. We know his father was the victim of an assassination as well as his uncle. And so there are now growing calls that he should receive Secret Service protection as a result of this. But of course, we don't know if, in fact, he will get that. That's something that the Biden administration, I suspect, will be pressured to offer him at this time. But of course, time will tell, in fact, if he will get that or what this will look like and what this assassination attempt perhaps would mean for a Robert Kennedy Jr. and, of course, his candidacy.
All right, thank you so much, Eric. We want to thank you for joining us on the morning show with this, brilliant insight into what is going on in Pennsylvania and the rest of America as far as the assassination attempt is concerned. Thank you. But we still have Adefemi in the house, and I think that Adefemi, of course, you had a brilliant presentation earlier to set the a context for what actually happened, and Eric too, has given us, a bit more of what is going on, the political part of it, the security part of it. What are your own thoughts, given that, like he said, like Eric said, this is not about 3 years into an election after an assassination attempt on a president. This is, how many days now?
Just a few months.
A few months,
November,
to November 5th.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts?
This is incredibly significant because there is no single voter who will be going into the ballot box who won't know what happened to the president, to the former President Trump.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're voting for him, everybody is well aware of what has happened today, and it's still going to be fresh on the minds of the people. This is happening against the backdrop of the early stages, because these are both presumptive nominees at this stage,
Correct.
right? We're still very much in the early stages, but if we can presume that Joseph Biden, the current president, and the former president Donald Trump will be the two figures to go head to head. Will clash again. This is going to be very interesting because we have been hearing a rallying cry, echoes of senior House Democrats not believing in the viability of Joseph Biden being able to be re-elected. They believe him to be weak, unable to withstand the pressures of the president, and unable to go against a formidable rival in Donald Trump. Conversely, conversations about strength and bravery are now going to be attached to Donald Trump in the wake of him being able to survive this assassination attempt. It's one thing to be shot at, right? It's one thing for a bullet to actually graze your skin.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hit the floor, but to stand up and put your fist up to the crowd, rally them up like that.
That black salute,
Which
is on the cover of This Day Today. Elon Musk too has tweeted it. I mean, I mean, in all this, it looks iconic. Do you think it will play a role moving forward?
100%. And I can imagine that many Republicans around the world will believe that Donald Trump will ride this wave back into the White House. The fact that he's been able to emerge out of this, it's a terrible situation. I think we also have to understand that this is this is an attempt on his life. So we have to take this with the severity that it deserves. But looking at this from a political standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, this is fantastic for the Republican camp. Absolutely, they will condemn violence. And then even talking about violence, it'll be very interesting to hear what the National Rifle Association has to say about this. Whether or not they'll continue to dig deep into their pockets to continue pushing a Republican presidency. It does seem as though you will see a likening of people who already are very attached to their firearms, and this will continue to embolden them. So it will be interesting also on the other hand of this to see what people who are more liberal, people who don't believe in gun ownership, who think that there should be stricter laws around gun ownership. It'll be interesting to see what they think, because this is the very threat
which President Biden also alluded to, by the way, in terms of gun control.
Yeah, especially, because this is an AR-15, and AR-15s have been the most popular guns when it comes to gun violence in America, when it comes to mass shootings. And so what we have actually seen is kudos to the Secret Service, because I believe they've prevented a larger scale tragedy here. And also, we have to see how I'd like to see what comes after this, because yes, Trump did raise the fist, as you said, but this is not like the Teddy Roosevelt era, where Teddy Roosevelt said you can't kill a moose like that, right? He got shot and he finished his speech. I think America has seen different
some of
different characters.
Some of his Nigerian supporters, by the way, are already calling him Anikulapo or
Kuti, for example.
Oh no. Okay, let's now move on to Arise Chief International Correspondent John Cookson, who's in London, as he joins us now for the international dimension to the assassination attempt on the former US President Donald Trump. Good morning, John, and welcome. Now, I'd like to find out...
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
I would like to reiterate something Mr. Steve said earlier, which is, does this bode well for America and America's international reputation? America has suffered from assassination of its presidents and its candidates and assassination attempts. So what is the temperature in England and internationally following this assassination attempt or alleged assassination attempt?
But let's be honest here, the world is looking at America and thinking, what a mess. What a mess the country is in. We've had all the rigmarole of Biden not stepping down in recent months, and then this assassination attempt on Trump. America is exhausted by what's been going on in the last few months, and certainly the world is looking on and looking to. I mean, we look to America in a sense for leadership and stability. And what do we get? We get what's happened today and in recent weeks and months in the political system there. It is the world is very, very unstable at the moment. World leaders have been giving their thoughts about this morning's incident. Keir Starmer says that he's the Prime Minister of the new Prime Minister of the UK, of course, says he's appalled by what's happened. Canada's Trudeau said he's truly shocked. The European Union have issued a statement saying that they're appalled by what's happened. And that's all very interesting. But my thoughts are with the likes of Putin and Xi and Kim Jong-un in North Korea. What are they thinking? Their current threats to the West, and they're looking on and seeing what's going on in America. And they're just perhaps waiting for their move, because the world is really, really unstable at the moment, and personified in this attempted assassination attempt on former President Trump. Things are really in a mess.
All right, John, what sort of bigger international dimension and interest do you think that this incident will bring to the election given that that attempt happened in a blue state in Pennsylvania, which is a democratic state, and a swing state, by the way. Do you think that this might have, is it an indication of anything? Because yes, there are so many conspiracy theories flying about. What are your thoughts around those areas?
Look, Trump is home and dry now in the presidential election. I mean, there's a way to go before November, but this will boost his standing hugely. Even I guess among wavering Democrats, and he was already slightly ahead in the opinion polls. And like Margaret Thatcher, who survived an assassination attempt in the 1980s, when you recall that the hotel in Brighton was blown up by the Irish Republican Army. She got a massive bounce, political bounce out of that by surviving, and Trump will do exactly the same. So I think we're looking at a Trump second term coming up in November, although I say there is still a long way to go. This is the elections in November, and a lot can happen before then. International events, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza. But as things stand this morning, he survived. You saw that punch in the air that he gave when the Secret Service was bundling away, because he knew, Donald Trump knew at that moment, he had the presidency in the bag when he made that fist bump in the air, shouting to his supporters about fighting and fighting. So we're looking at a new Trump presidency, as far as I can see. And as for conspiracy theories, well, the internet is absolutely alive with them at the moment, because there's ample evidence that Thomas Matthew Crooks, who is the guy who's been named as the attempted assassin, was seen by people in the crowd for minutes before the shots rang out. And why didn't the FBI, why didn't they make a move then? Why didn't they take Crooks out when he was spotted by the crowd? And this, of course, fuels international internet conspiracy theories hugely. And was there a conspiracy to take Trump out? We don't know. Police will be searching Crooks' home for his computers, and they'll be profiling him. Was he working with others? What was his financial situation? Which websites did he visit? All of these things will come out in the coming days.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, some reports are claiming that President Trump was not actually shot in the air, that it might have been glass from a teleprompter. What do you think about this? Do you think that this has any effect at all on the outcome of this assassination attempt, or alleged assassination attempt, on Donald Trump's life? And also, how do you feel about the conspiracy theories that go against Trump, those who believe that this was staged, that this is fake news? What do you think the implications of these conspiracy theories are in the general elections?
Well, the last bit is clearly nonsense. I mean, how could anyone stage that to such a degree of sophistication? And on the point of was it glass or was it a bullet, Trump says it was a bullet. The authorities seem to say it was a bullet that caused damage, that clipped Trump's ear. So in a sense, it doesn't matter, because the images are out there. What you've been showing will be screened thousands of times in the coming days and weeks. It's become an iconic television moment. And has been classed already as an attempt on Trump's life, an assassination attempt. So the fact that it might have been a bit of glass, in a sense, doesn't really matter. It's the images that count.
Absolutely. John, I would like to ask you what you think the Democrats can do in this situation. Absolutely, on the surface, and definitely it is genuine. They will be extending their well wishes out to former President Trump. They will be checking in on him, making sure he's okay. President Biden has done just that. But in terms of the real business of this election, you've said we're still quite a way away from the election in November, but this is still very, very close to it at the same time. What, if anything, can the Democrats do to regain the lost iconic ground that they have lost in light of this assassination attempt of former President Trump? What do you think the Democrats can do? Can they do anything, or is this already far out of reach?
I make this sign. I make this sign because all they can do is to pray, because the Republican convention is taking place next week, and no doubt we'll hear a lot from Trump and his pick for VP. That's going to dominate the news. The Democrats just have to try to survive and get through this period, and hope that the weeks and months ahead are kind to them. Now, whether Biden will step down during that time, we just don't know. I mean, the situation is so fluid and so dynamic at the moment, it's hard to make any predictions. All we can say for the moment is that Trump will benefit from what's happened, and the Democrats have just got to batten down the hatches and try and survive the best they can.
Thank you very much, John Coxon, Arise International correspondent. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has described Saturday's apparent assassination attempt on former US President Donald Trump as an attack on their nation's shared values. Trump's campaign said the presumptive GOP nominee was doing fine after the shooting, which he said pierced the upper part of his right ear.
Along with all Australians, I was shocked by the terrible scenes at former President Trump's campaign event in Pennsylvania. I'm relieved by the news that the former president is safe and doing fine, and I wish him and his family well. I applaud the swift work of US security agencies. I'm also saddened by reports that a member of the audience has lost their life and other attendees have been injured, and I send my condolences on behalf of Australia to their loved ones in this time of grief. Let us be clear. The people at this event, the candidate, the crowd, the free press covering it, were all participating in the democratic process. In Australia, as in the United States, the essence and the purpose of our democracies is that we can express our views, debate our disagreements, and resolve our differences peacefully. We do so with respect for each other and in the spirit of a shared love of our country. Any act of violence is an affront to that and must be condemned unequivocally. This was an inexcusable attack on the democratic values that Australians and Americans share and the freedom that we treasure. These values are ones that unite our two countries. It's the basis of our alliance, is those shared values between our peoples as great democratic nations. And all Australians stand with our friends in the United States at this difficult time.
How are you doing? We're still on this very somber...
Definitely, morning.
Very somber morning.
This is the thing, we were just discussing this in the commercial break, that situations like this are always significant, they're talking points, but in terms of actually changing people's minds, it's unlikely that if you have in your mind who you're going to vote for, it's very, very unlikely that an American voter will now say, well, after seeing that, I was going to vote for Joe Biden, but now I'm going to vote for Trump. That's unlikely to be the case, but what we will see is this having an effect on overall voter turnout. Perhaps if you were already in support of Trump, but weren't planning to come out, to organize, didn't want to register to vote, perhaps this would be the situation that would actually bring you out of your home in order to vote for Trump. But I don't think you'll see a jumping off ship of people from one side of the political spectrum to the other in light of this situation. But that being said, this is going to be a boon for the Trump presidency, for their attempts to be re-elected. This is not going to hurt or hamper their imaging at all, especially since the rhetoric, when you're looking at President Joe Biden, rhetoric has been him being weak, unable to really know who he is or what he's talking about, making gaffes when he's introducing different world leaders.
A gaffe a day, they say.
Very, very sadly. So it will be interesting to see formally his next campaign-esque type of appearance. That's President Biden, how he's going to appear, what his team can do, which is why I asked John Cookson, what can the Democrats do to really get themselves back in this fight? Because now I think the rhetoric is all on the Republican convention, which will start in just less than 24 hours now. It's going to likely be Donald Trump emerging as the Republicans' candidate, and now they're going to have to.
Tomorrow, by
there's a lot of momentum. There's a lot of momentum here. But I want to ask actually, because do you believe that Donald Trump can react to this in a way that would actually affect him poorly? Because, you know, we did see in the past when Nancy Pelosi's husband, for example, was attacked in his home and Trump was mocking him, mocking their home. We've seen Trump mock other people who have been in similar situations. That was, as you could say, an attempted assassination. It was a political attack. And, you know, there would be a lot of blame going around. We've had a US congressman come out and say Joe Biden should be blamed for this because of the rhetoric going around. But do you think that there is a way that Trump may respond to this as Trump does, that could actually harm him during the election cycle? Or do you think that's not in the cards?
Here's the thing, Donald Trump doesn't fight fair. I think we all know that. He doesn't fight fair, and he does everything in his own personal interest. Has he done those things, those were deplorable things, making fun of other people in very similar situations? Yes. I don't think that he's going to turn around and say, well, you know, I regret for saying those things about Nancy. No, he's not. He's going to use this to his own interest for the betterment of his own campaign. I don't think that he's going to. This is not going to be sobering for him. It's going to be energizing for him.
So we're going to see a stronger. But I don't think that that will surprise anybody.
No, but I don't think it's going to surprise. I don't see it will surprise his core supporters.
Blame the Secret Service or criticize them, that perhaps their bases would be offended?
Yeah, because, you know, this election will come down, as you said, it's going to come down to the swing states, those swing state voters. Some previously pro-Trump supporters who were not happy with his first-term performance. You know, we have some undecideds, and those undecideds are those who are going to decide the elections. And is there a way he can react that would make those people say, you know what, this is why we had
let me share
the Capitol building takeover,
a few thoughts on that. I doubt it, given what we are seeing already from the base of Trump. What you will see, and which is also part of what he probably will focus on, will be to emphasize they got him impeached. They got him indicted. They tried to jail him. Now they try to kill him. That sort of, rhetoric is what you will get, from, but let's see how it goes. All right, Donald Trump's campaign says he's fine after what law enforcement officials are treating as an apparent assassination attempt during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday, when Eyewitness claimed that the shooter was easily spotted as he made his way onto a nearby roof.
We had a party here all day. You can see behind us at the Brinkles Farm and Greenhouse here. We had a party, and we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally. Right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea. But we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police are like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Could they see
binoculars?
Could they see him?
Probably not, because the roof, the way the slope went, he was behind where they could see. But why is there not Secret Service on all of these roofs here? I mean, this is not a big place.
Did you see, obviously everyone, when the shooting started, everyone was very panicked. Did you see what happened to him at all?
Oh yeah, they blew his head off.
Okay, sorry.
Secret Service blew his head off.
Okay, just be careful because we don't quite know who's watching, but you're pretty sure they shot the guy?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
You saw that happen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you see them go up to him afterwards, or?
They crawled up on the roof. They had their guns pointed at him, make sure he was dead. He was dead, and that was it. It was over.
That's incredibly shocking.
The guy was on the roof right there. You can see the white roof right there.
Did you get a look at him? Could you?
No, other than he was in muted colors, tan type clothing. We saw the rifle flinging around as he was trying to crawl. We saw the rifle, 100%.
Do you know about guns? Do you know what kind of weapon it was?
Oh, I absolutely know about guns, for sure. No, it was a rifle of some sort. I wouldn't know, I wasn't close enough to read the label on it.
No,
but
sure. But a high velocity weapon.
It was a rifle of some sort. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you process what you've just seen?
I don't know what to say, man. I'll tell you is, if I walked up close to there with anything that Secret Service considered a problem, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you right now. But I don't know why a guy who we're standing there pointing out to police and Secret Service is crawling up the roof.
All right, well, that was very interesting testimony from an alleged eyewitness there who saw the shooter but didn't see the shooter, saw the gun but didn't know what type of gun it was. That was interesting. That being said, it is in the meantime that former President Trump's daughter, Ivanka, has released a statement on X thanking law enforcement for their swift response. She says, "Thank you for your love and prayers for my father and for the other victims of today's senseless violence in Butler, Pennsylvania. I'm grateful to the Secret Service and all other law enforcement officers for their quick and decisive actions today. I continue to pray for our country. I love you, Dad, today and always," she wrote. Now, international leaders are writing messages of support on social media after former President Donald Trump was injured at a rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said, "Sarah and I were shocked by the apparent attack on President Trump. We pray for his safety and speedy recovery." Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, he says that my thoughts and prayers are with President Donald Trump in these dark hours. UK Prime Minister's office has also said that we are shocked by the scenes at President Trump's rally, former President Trump's rally in Pennsylvania, and we condemn all forms of political violence in the strongest terms, and we send our best wishes to Donald Trump and his family at this time. Now, to Japan, which has also recently had a situation of itself when Shinzo Abe was assassinated, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida says that we must stand firm against any form of violence that challenges democracy. I pray for former President Trump's speedy recovery. Also, the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell Fontelles, he says that he's shocked by the news of the attack on President Trump, which I strongly condemn, he writes. Once again, we are witnessing unacceptable acts of violence against political representatives. This is definitely going to be a rhetoric that we're going to be expecting over the course of the day. More and more people coming out to condemn these attacks, which are appalling. I think that sometimes you have to separate the character from the situation at hand. And this was an attempt on his life, something that could have had fatal repercussions, but they have been. Yeah. There is a person, a bystander, who at this point, it's not clear if that person has been identified, but other than the alleged shooter, another person in the crowd was killed. And clearly that is a tragedy in and of itself. But I do want to speak to you both about what you are feeling when it comes to the leadership of the United States, which way they're going, because when it comes to gun violence, they are no strangers to gun violence across every echelon of society. Aside from political leaders, there's also the issue about mass shooting in public spaces, in schools. And we talk a lot about the need for there to be some form of holistic solution to America's association and its love of firearms. But it will be interesting to see what role that love plays going forth. I don't think that people who are staunch supporters of the right to bear arms are now going to say, well, after this assassination attempt, perhaps we should reconsider access to firearms. I don't think that's going to happen.
My question on the back of that will be that will there be a way for President Biden, and he gave a mild indication, and for the Democrats in general to use this as an opportunity to try and extract some commitment from the Republicans in terms of gun control?
Definitely. I truly doubt that. I think one of the most bizarre things I would say about gun control when it comes to America, when it comes to gun control legislation, is that there is actually bipartisan support for the ban of assault weapons such as AR-15s. There's actually most polls, most people will tell you that most Americans want bans of weapons such as AR-15s due to the level of destruction that they can cause. Now, whether we're going to see that now feed into legislation when we have a strong gun lobby in the NRA is something that we are not going to see. I very much doubt that we're going to see Donald Trump come out and say this shows that we need gun control. I think he's going to follow the line of the NRA that says that what you need when you have a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun to stop him, which is how they are going to paint this. I think it's a very clear NRA, like the narrative is already written, the script already exists. I very much doubt we're going to see gun control legislation come out of this. I very much doubt we're going to see Donald Trump come out against something that a lot of his core supporters are for. It's a huge shame when you have things such as background checks, such as a ban on assault weapons, having widespread support, however, not having the legislative support within the House and within the Senate. So I truly doubt that. But I think one thing that I'm feeling now is that when I saw the response, the immediate response from both sides, from both the right and the left, I saw the danger. And this, I think I would say it was sad, that there was an AP reporter who said that the crowd nearly immediately turned on the reporters there and said, it's the media's fault, it's your fault. I also saw a lot of people on the left say, you know what, he did this intentionally, this is an acting, this is fake news. And you see what Trump himself actually has been a proponent of fake news, has been somebody who has supported, he coined the term fake news, supported conspiracy theories, and now there are conspiracy theories about an attempt on his own life. It shows that, when you start something, you don't know where it's going to end. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know where it's going to go.
I mean, the other area that I'm interested in, of course, before we let Adefemi go, is what to expect, from the FBI and the State Service. Matthew Crooks, that's his name, isn't it?
That's his last name, yes.
Matthew Crooks is dead. I mean, that's the suspect, Crooks, yes. And we were discussing this, do we know anything about the pattern of assassinations and what happens to such investigations as to a 20-year-old just getting up, finding himself on the rooftop, waited for hours, fired 8, shots, but he's dead now. I mean, for Reagan, for Kennedy, for different people, what eventually happened, and what do we think might happen? I mean, will he have done this all by himself?
Usually the rhetoric is that these parties operate by themselves. It's a lone wolf. It's one person that has decided to, in a moment of madness, or perhaps in a sustained moment of madness, they have had a preconceived, a calculated attempt on another person's life. That always seems to be the going line. And I think to some extent, while it may or may not be true, it is the initial situation that we find ourselves with at this early part of the situation. That being said, because we are so early, it will be very interesting to see what investigators come out with. Because as you've said, this is a person that we don't know much about.
No.
We only know his name and
Exactly.
his age. Unclear what his state of health was, whether or not he acted as part of a group. This is I think that this is also a legitimate question. Did he act alone? And
Exactly.
how do we know he didn't, right? And so I think it will be very interesting to see what the investigators come up with and whether or not that information will be privy to the public. Because it is it's very easy to say, well, he did this all himself. He was able to secure a firearm, find himself on the roof, as you said, wait for hours before then making this attempt and then being neutralized. So then there isn't even the prospect of finding out what his planning process was, who he spoke to about this, how he decided to come to terms with this decision today. So this is where we're finding ourselves with as it stands. President Trump doesn't look like he's going to succumb to these injuries. If anything, we will see him in Milwaukee this week. And it is at this point pretty much almost confirmed that he will emerge as the Republicans' candidate for presidential re-election this year.
All right, Adefemi, thank you so much. And of course, like I said yesterday, it's nice having you barking good on the morning show for the weekend. I mean, the last time was when you were, before you went to Harvard. To Harvard.
My goodness gracious, almost, yes, it was August. I remember our last show was together.
August,
look at us now.
All right, then, thank you.
Thank you, Adesua.